So, hi everyone. Hello. Thank you all for joining us. This is Smack Mellon's second virtual artist talk. We had one last Thursday with Jude Talashe. Um, and we're in a minute, we're going to screen the talk that artist Summer McCorkle and I had. And we pre-recorded it, so we're going to watch that. And then we'll have a live Q&A with the audience afterwards. But let me just make some introductions. I'm Gabriel de Guzman, curator and director of exhibitions. And Summer's exhibition, Des Abends, is a two-channel video installation that was on view at Smack Mellon before we had to temporarily close because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And since then, we've made the video available to watch on our website, smackmellon.org. And if you haven't seen it, it's on our website. I encourage you to watch it, and you can watch it right after this if you want, or later on. And I want to thank Summer for her participation in this talk. Thanks, Summer.
Thank you.
And when we start the video of the talk, if you're having trouble with the quality of the video, you can watch it on our website as well. And we'll put the link in the chat. We'll put the link to the video of the talk in the chat. And that video will also stay up and will be watchable on our website after the event as well. So that link should go up soon. And the other thing about that is if you do end up needing to watch it on our website, you'll have to leave this call because otherwise it'll be playing in two places and it'll cause feedback. So you'll have to leave the call, but then you can rejoin the Zoom meeting around 6:35, 6:40. And then we'll be starting the live Q&A then. I also wanted to mention that we'll be putting up a link in the chat where you can make a donation to support Smack Mellon and our programming. I know it's been a tough time for everyone, so anything that you might be able to contribute would be really appreciated. Okay, and so we're going to start, but when my colleague Audrey starts the video, you might need to drag the Zoom window to the left side of your screen so you can see Summer and me talking on the right side. I think those are all of the notes that I have to convey at the moment. So, yeah. Okay. So thanks everyone. So let's go ahead and start the video and then we'll reconvene around 6:35 or so and start the talk. Thank you.
Great.
Hi, Summer.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, all things considered.
Yeah, I know. Well, welcome, and thank you for joining me for our virtual artist talk during this time of social distancing. I just want to give our viewing audience a little bit of context before we start. So we opened your exhibition, Des Abends, at Smack Mellon on March 7th, and it was on view for just 1 week before we had to close the gallery because of COVID-19. Mm-hmm. And since we've been temporarily closed for about a month now, we've been trying to
trying different ways of offering content and programming online and through social media, including screening your 2-channel video on our website. And this virtual artist talk is also part of that programming effort. So let's go ahead and begin our conversation. I hope everyone has had a chance to view your video, Des Abends, which is on SmackMelon's website, smackmelon.org. So I wanted to start by asking you to tell us how and where you developed the concept for this film. Often your work is made in response to a site or place, and there are such breathtaking landscapes depicted in Des Abends. Where was it filmed, and how did the locations guide your process for creating this work?
Yeah, so as you said, my process is usually just to kind of show up at a place with a loose idea of what I'm interested in, and to just start filming and see what I find there and let a piece organically develop from there. So this piece was mainly filmed in 2 locations with some pickup shots 2 other places, but I actually started it at a residency at MacDowell in New Hampshire, which is this like heavenly place for artists to go. And
Right.
yeah, they have like a cabin for you, and they have grounds that you can film on. So I knew they would have some wooded areas and stuff like that. So that was sort of in the back of my mind. And not right before, but when I applied, my father had recently been diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. So I was just trying to think of something like a film idea. I kind of wanted to do a film idea with him, actually, about trees, because he always worked with trees, and he had a tree business, and trees were like, I used to help him plant trees, so trees were like really important to us. So I had proposed to go there and just film on the grounds and then kind of make something with him later before kind of the disease progressed and it got too late. But that never happened, but sort of this came out of that. So
I see.
Yeah, so while I was there, I actually started reading Frankenstein randomly, and I don't know why. You bring these books to residencies, you're like, yeah, I'm going to read this. And I had read it before, but it was like nothing like I remembered. There were these beautiful passages where the creature is learning about his surroundings and gaining knowledge and just learning what the world was. And it really struck me that I was thinking about my father's disease as it would progress, that he would sort of unlearn things.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. So then I just started thinking, so how could I use the tree idea? And the creature talks a lot about the natural elements like sun and moon and trees. And so I just went around the grounds and was filming kind of like his point of view, and then thinking of character or setting in place as character. So really not showing the creature, but just showing like what the creature was seeing or how you might experience something that you don't even know what it is, like a tree, etc.
I see.
And so that was the first part. Then a few years later, I went on another residency in the countryside of Finland, and there,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was the whole premise of the residency was to be, you went in January, and it was to be like in darkness, to be in the cold and just experience what that felt like. So I went there kind of thinking I would still film along the lines of, place as character again. But when I got there, it was so dark. It was so snowy. It was so cold. I was so discombobulated with jet lag. I didn't know what time it was. Like, everybody there was really confused. And so then I just started thinking about kind of time and weather and the length of days, and again, the landscape. And so I would just shoot almost every day there, and just started to think a lot. And then this character sort of appeared, the female character appeared to me there, and I wrote her part there. So it's kind of over a long span of time.
A period of time. Yeah. And this is an image of the residency buildings in Finland, right?
Yeah. So
mhm.
I was shooting out, the blue building is where I was shooting out like the shot of the figure in the field. That was my view from that.
Okay. What was it like to be there and in the countryside of Finland and working in these harsh weather conditions there?
Yeah, it was really intense. I mean, I'm from Wisconsin, and I love, I love snow and cold. But it was cold. It was like, I think the coldest was 29 below Fahrenheit, and that's like without wind chill.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then it hovered around like -10, -20, like the average while I was shooting. So, I would go outside. I sort of, around those buildings, I filmed a lot around there. And I would just, wear tons of layers and take everything out, and then like run back in the house and warm up and then go back out. But once I had kind of exhausted that site, I decided to borrow one of their cars. And that's kind of like this back roads part, like anytime in the piece you see a road, they have one-way roads to go to like summer cottages on the lakes there. So it's not like people are on those roads. So I would just drive and park the car, leave it running because you can turn it off, or you might not be able to turn it back on. Like jump outside, jump outside and like I could film for like 5 minutes before my fingers started to freeze, and then get back in the car. So it was this very hilarious way of filming, and I was always worried that somebody would come the other way on the one way, and what would we around? But thankfully that never happened. But yeah, it was fun. I just, like, there was no cell reception. Everybody was worried about me going out there, but I was like, I got to get those shots. It's just really beautiful back there.
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds really tough, but you were able to capture some really gorgeous scenes.
Yeah, it was very special back there. Yeah.
And, this work is also one of the most personal works you've made.
Yeah.
And considering your father's illness, two pervading themes of this piece I see are memory and loss.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that this was a cathartic piece for you to make?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It was really personal for me. It was actually hard for me to even kind of tell people what it was about initially, but I feel like it's important we talk about these things. So especially with this disease, which is becoming more and more prevalent. So, for me, I think because I started it when he was initially diagnosed, and then I finished the final edit actually after his death. So the piece sort of spanned the whole time of his sickness.
I see, yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me it was a way to process what he might have been going through, and then also like my biggest fears in relation to what he was going through. And I mean, there were definitely points. It took me a while to finish because I just couldn't even look at it for a while. It was just too sad to edit.
Yeah.
But after some time passed, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to like wrap this up and get this out into the world. And so I would say it was cathartic. It really helped me process just the whole experience. And actually the creature's text, I think, really helped me try to understand more what might be going on in his mind. So,
I mean, it's such a moving piece. And I think that your film really captures a sense of isolation, which is so relevant to the way many of us are feeling during this time lockdowns and social distancing.
Yeah.
I think it really resonates, especially now.
I know.
And I wanted to ask you about the way that nature figures into this piece.
Mm-hmm.
How much does the vastness of nature factor into what you were exploring with this work? The film seems to look at our place in the world almost from an existential standpoint. We seem so small, almost insignificant in the grandness of the natural world.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. Like, I mean, nature's always been an important element in all my work, and I'm really interested in landscape as as a witness, as a setting, as character, like I said earlier, but also as like as both romantic and foreboding. So.
Right.
Yeah, when I was shooting this, I wanted the landscape to either feel really vast and overwhelming a bit, and like when you see a figure, it's like dip, 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 it's tiny
Right.
in there.
Uh-huh.
And I think I wanted that too. So yeah, so the characters would really feel insignificant in relation to what was surrounding them, or as a metaphor, like having no control over what happens to them.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then I think also while I was shooting, another thing just related to nature, like climate change, obviously very important.
Yeah.
I thought a lot about that while I was shooting this, because like that kind of snow and cold, I feel like I had growing up in Wisconsin when I was young,
Mm-hmm.
and it just doesn't exist in the southern parts anymore there in Wisconsin.
Oh.
So I just got this creepy feeling while I was filming that I was almost doing a documentary, for the future of snow. So then I became super obsessed with like, oh, I have to shoot snow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, almost like preserving it on film for future generations.
Yeah. And that's why at the end of the piece, she says, it rained and it washed away all the snow, leaving this like dark landscape. And that actually did happen on my last day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was I didn't end up filming it, but it was creepy.
Yeah, it's really upsetting at what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk more about the film's narrative. And you touched on it a little bit, but you essentially have two storylines that are interwoven here.
Yeah.
One is recounted by a female voice, and then one is told by a male voice. Can you tell us more, I guess, about the two narratives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there are two voices that weave together the story.
Mm-hmm.
I knew when I was reading the Frankenstein text, I wanted to use that text, but as I thought more about it, it just wasn't enough to make a piece from.
Okay.
So, his narrative is about his experience after sort of being born, created, of this new world. He has no knowledge of anything. There's no one to teach him. He's really alone, and he has to make his way alone.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he doesn't know what the sun is, what the birds are, what trees are, what the moon is, or even what language is. And then her character, as I was in Finland and just thinking about those things I said earlier, like time and all this stuff, I was just thinking about that. So that part got written, and I wanted her to sort of start at a different place than he was starting, and then they would cross over, and then they would go on their way. So she starts a bit lost, and she goes to this place for a break from New York. She ends up finding her footing there, but then she has this tragedy of this great loss, and after that tragedy, she realizes she's about to sort of lose more, like in her memories and her knowledge of her surroundings, and possibly her language would disappear. So he's sort of learning, and then she's, you know, unlearning while he's learning. So they do this sort of crossover. So they struggle together at some point, and then he starts to discover what language is, kind of when she's going to start losing that. So,
I see. Yeah. Because essentially in your narrative, what it does is it incorporates the original text that you wrote, which is spoken by the female character, and then it incorporates the borrowed text from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein novel. And then they sort of, like you said, they sort of cross and interconnect and then sort of weave out again in a way.
Yeah. So they sort of, a little bit of call and response to each other, maybe. I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And were there specific passages that you wanted to mention from the book? That you ended up including in your film? Yeah,
let me get some. I have them memorized, but let's see if I can remember.
Okay.
Just in case I don't. Yeah, I think that the two passages that to me really, really spoke to me and sort of answer one of the female narrators' questions, they sort of work together. I'll just read. So for when he's introduced in the film, his first introduction is this passage. So he says, "It is with considerable difficulty that I remember the original era of my being. All the events of that period appear confused and indistinct. A strange multiplicity of sensations seized me, and I saw, felt, heard, and smelt at the same time. And it was indeed a long time before I learned to distinguish between the operations of my various senses." And then he goes on to say later, so that's sort of the first, like, just being really confused. Like, you can't distinguish your senses from each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then later he says, "I remember a stronger light pressed upon my nerves so that I was obliged to shut my eyes. Darkness then came over me and troubled me. But hardly had I felt this when, by opening my eyes, as I now suppose, the light poured in upon me again. I walked and I believe descended, but I presently found a great alteration in my sensations. Before, dark and opaque bodies had surrounded me, impervious to my touch or sight, but I now found that I could wander on at liberty, with no obstacles which I could not either surmount or avoid." So that passage, I am just like, I just love. It's so beautiful and just depicts disorientation and confusion of everything surrounding him. Like, we know the bodies are the trees, the light is the sun, but like to not have even that basic knowledge of what's around you, even though you're a conscious being, you know, it's not like he's a baby. He's like a conscious, not that a baby's not a conscious being. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
right.
He knows he's just trying to decipher this. And I just thought that confusion was so accurately put. And so she says at one point, because she's talking about someone else that she's thinking about. So she says, I wonder if this is how he feels when he wakes up, or as his darkness takes over him and replaces his thoughts with blankness and confusion. Does he feel this even while he's awake, while he's having a conversation with me? So he's sort of saying, yes, I feel this blankness and confusion. I can't explain it to you because I literally don't have the ability to. I don't have the language or I can't put the thoughts in order to tell you what's going through in my head. And I just feel like that's very much how Alzheimer's is, especially the beginning. And patients get really frustrated because they're like trying to tell you, but they can't. And it's heartbreaking.
So I also wanted to discuss the mediums that you chose for this work, because you actually incorporate video, film, and still photography.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to use these three mediums together? Can you talk about bringing moving image together with still photography and what you feel that achieved in the work?
Yeah, okay. So my background is in photography originally, so sort of I've fallen in love with film, but I've always originally based in photo, so I feel to me like they just make sense that they can mix together. I'm interested in this fine line between the still and moving image, so where you might have a moving image look like it's still, but then there's like a reveal in it where something moves, or the fact that still images make up moving images. So I like to play with that. This section that you have up now, like that actually sets apart where the creature's talking. It's like tick, 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 like the black and white trees.
It's very fragmented, right?
Yeah, so that actually starts with film and then ends up with stills. So, but I like the stills to go fast, so you get a little disoriented of like what is going on. So I like playing with that. And yeah, I think I chose to shoot on 16, like the stuff at McDowell is shot on 16 millimeter film on a Bolex, and I wanted it to be a little less perfect than video is, and I wanted that sort of organic film feel where the frame is a little jumpy and it's sort of animated. That appealed to me for his point of view.
Yeah.
And then the black and white also appealed to me. And then the video, I think I wanted that to be a little more like present in the present. And I also just needed to use video. I knew I was going to be shooting in the dark a lot there, so I needed to. Video can just handle darkness better than film in that situation.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, yeah, I like joining them all together. Like I know some people are like really purists about it, but
right.
I'm not that person because I do them all and I shoot like 4x5 film and I can shoot like whatever because it's all the same thing. It's all involving a lens and framing and presenting what we see. So.
And what does the title Des Abends refer to?
Yeah, so it's a movement from a piano piece by Schumann, the Fantasiestücke piece.
Okay.
And I titled it because it's the music the character is playing throughout the film. So it means in the evening in German. And yeah, I like the title because it represented dusk or like darkness, or the end of something, or darkness falling. And yeah, it's a piece I've just loved forever, and that I actually used to be able to play. And I knew I maybe wanted to have some music in this, so I sat down to try to play it.
Oh,
it's been a while, so
Did you grow up playing music and studying the piano?
Yeah, I studied piano and clarinet and a little bassoon.
Oh, wow.
And then I found photography, so I left it. Yeah, so I started playing it, and then it made me realize, like, oh, this is so interesting, like me trying to learn it. And then I was just thinking, oh, this could work well in the piece. So I hired a pianist just because of time, because it would take me like 6 months to what he could do in 3 days. But
to learn the piece, you mean?
Yeah, to learn the piece. I had him record the learning of it. So he starts recording like during his practice sessions and then up to when he finally has the full piece. And then, so I use that throughout. So when things are going sort of smoothly for her, we have the full piece. And when things sort of start to fall apart for her, the sort of practice sessions come in. So it's like, the same note at the end. It's like ding, ding, ding. Like,
oh, okay. Yeah.
Sort of fragmenting of the whole piece. And then And then the creature's part is always the bass line, or always the second hand, so bass line of the piece.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
So I just thought it was like a way to sort of track her, what was going on with her, that she used to be able to play this piece, and by the time we see her, she's, forgetting how to play it.
I see.
Yeah.
And in this image that I have on the screen, it's the scene of the woman who is playing the Schumann piece on the piano.
Yeah.
And this character in the film is actually played by you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that the female character sort of represents you? Is it meant to be autobiographical in a way, or?
Not. Well, yeah, not necessarily. I mean,
okay.
The character definitely touches on things I was thinking about.
Right.
For sure. But then she really has her own distinct voice and experience of things that happen. And when I wrote it, it really is like a character comes to me and I just write, and she has the story to tell me. So, not everything that happened to her happened to me. And
oh, I see. Yeah.
So, she might pick up on some things I'm thinking about, and I just used myself because I don't like shooting with a crew. Like, I just love shooting alone. So I'm a really solo shooter.
Right.
So I just used myself.
Okay. You didn't have to hire an actor and do all that stuff.
Yeah. I like to just work alone.
Yeah, I see.
I mean, I can work with crews too, but this piece especially was, I think I did a lot of thinking while I was shooting. So I do a lot of processing while I'm shooting.
Right. And I guess to bring in other production people or other a crew or whatever into that space, because you were in this very sort of isolated kind of headspace probably, so you probably didn't want to bring in a bunch of other outside people into the process. Yeah,
and I think for that too, you really need to have a script, and I sort of work kind of opposite in that I start shooting, then I write a script, then then I write the final script in the final edit. So I kind of don't know the story. Like, I work sort of the opposite.
Yeah. So the story sort of evolves after you've kind of done the shooting in a way.
Yeah, and a lot of this, I mean, the story's written, but then I'll mess around in the edit a lot. I mean, everybody does that with film, but when you hire a crew, you really have to be able to tell them, like, this is what we're doing. I thought of hiring an editor just because it was too emotional for me to edit. And then I was like, I don't know how to tell them what I need. So
yeah, that's tough. Yeah. And this is an installation shot, or this is a shot of the film as it's presented in the gallery.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell from watching the film online, but in the gallery you can see that you decided to present the work really as more of an installation. Mm-hmm. The two channels of the video meet in the corner of the room, and so it engages the space in a really interesting way. Why did you want to present it like this?
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted it to be two channels for sure. And I sort of realized that when I was shooting the sun sequence, and I just knew I just wanted to split the sun. I don't know why. And I wanted to sort of set in this, like
this.
Yeah. So that's where I came up with that. It had to be two channels. And then when I was thinking about, I didn't want just a split screen. So then I was like, I'll put it in a corner so you can really be immersed in it and really be kind of half surrounded and enveloped by the landscape itself. Yeah, so I just wanted it to be a little more present, and also the size to be, you know, the scale that you were really in it. And yeah, I think also the 2-channel element was important to me, so I could expand upon the landscape. So I wanted to just get a little wider than 16:9 video format. So I wanted to do like fragments making a whole. So I would do 2 similar landscapes that make a whole landscape, or put 2 things together that then unfurl like a scroll, like sort of scrolling landscape, or put 2 black and white 35 millimeter still slides together to make, you know, 1 landscape. So I shot it like, and then sandwiched it together. So yeah, I was thinking a lot about stage sets actually while I was doing this too. So just sort of like background, and yeah, just having sort of a background for their voices.
I mean, I think it works beautifully, and there are, you know, by having them, the two halves of the film sort of meet in that corner, you get that definite break there. And there are times in the film where it all sort of clicks together as one, you know, panoramic view. And then there are times where there's a break, and sometimes there's a clear break. And sometimes there's just like a little bit of, it's just like slightly off, and you sort of wonder if your eye is playing a trick on you or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there are moments where one half of the image is dark, and then the other half has an image on it, and then it alternates. And so yeah, I think it really works beautifully with the sense of fragmentation as well.
Yeah, and each, like, he had a wall and she had a wall, and only one time did she appear on his wall and then move over to her wall. So, or the landscape, I mean. So it helped with that too, having these 2 distinct voices, but then coming together whole.
Yeah.
So happy with how it turned out there.
I know. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, it all worked really beautifully.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to close with this image of the sunset. It also relates to the title and the idea of in the evening.
Yeah.
Can you talk about like what other metaphorical aspects does the sunset represent here?
Yeah. I feel so the sun was a really important companion for her character too in the film. So he sort of had the moon as his companion, if we choose the sun and the moon, and she had the sun. So it's sort of setting at the end of the film when she's sort of realizing, like, I think she's saying, my, you know, sensations of the present, to be in the present. I can't remember offhand, but
it's okay.
Yeah, you would think, because I've literally said it so many times. So I like this idea of the sun setting, and obviously sun representing the end of the day, the coming of night, darkness falling, and loss. But I was also really interested in this term with Alzheimer's and dementia called sundowning.
Oh.
So, sundowning is when, you know, it usually happens at the end of the day, hence the sundowning, or kind of early dusk, evening. And it's sort of the hour that for these patients or people with this disease get really agitated, they get really confused, they may wander or pace. So it's kind of like a witching hour in a way. It's like everything gets amplified with the disease. And when I first witnessed it, because I had heard about it, but when I witnessed it, at a home, I was like, wow, this is intense, and it's amazing that we're still connected to nature in that way, and like tied to light and the natural world, and you could see it in this phenomenon happening. So I think I was also thinking about that with this, and I wanted it to sort of be at the end of the piece for that.
Yeah, so sort of thinking about the cycles of nature and cycles of life and our bodies, I guess, too. Yeah. Well, this is such a compelling and moving film. So thank you so much, Summer. I really appreciate your sharing this work with us and telling us about your process and everything behind it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Summer, Gabriel.
Thanks.
And welcome, everyone.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. So let's see. Maybe I'll sort of reintroduce for people that sort of came in the middle, and maybe I'll just reintroduce the host speakers at the event today. So Summer McCorkle is the exhibiting artist whose talk you just heard. I'm Gabriel de Guzman, curator and director of exhibitions at Smack Mellon, and my colleague Audrey Irving is the communications and events manager, and she is coordinating tonight's event. So now we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. If you have a question for Summer, what you should do is write, I have a question in the chat, and then Audrey will be calling on you in the order that the questions are received. She'll unmute you to ask your question. Please try to keep your questions concise, and then remute yourself after you've asked your question. If your microphone doesn't work or you would like us to read your question, then just type in the question into the chat and then we'll read it. So who has a question?
I will start with a question that we received. So this is a question for Summer from April Zan Johnson. She wrote, "Hi Summer, you mentioned waking to a blankness of being or of memory, like getting a glimpse of what is experienced perpetually by those with memory loss issues, like a foreshadow of old age. Later it feels as though the female narrator has forgotten a traumatic event or memory suppressed the event. Does the male narrator of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, starting father, coincide with memory return, or a return to the present in which none of the events occurred and have yet to be written?" And she writes, "Also, thanks for sharing this beautiful work with us." Thank you, April, for your question.
Thanks,
Thank you.
I think I got a little confused at the end. So you're asking if the father, Frankenstein saying the father, because she actually says father.
I asked the question before you gave the talk. I watched the video before the talk began, so I emailed the question in.
So you're wondering if the father was related.
Right, if there was some kind of connection where he says father and then the female name was father, and then if there was a crossover into the present moment. Of course, before listening to you describe it, I was wondering, is she back to writing the book? And that whole life just disappeared. And I definitely got the feeling of memory issue though beforehand.
Yeah. So was your question answered then? Or
I I guess so. I was wondering if that moment where they both say father, what, like in your words, what actually happens at that moment where they cross over?
Okay, so she's throughout, she's reading the book, right? So that his voice is in her head as she's reading. And then she says, I was reading a chapter in Frankenstein when I realized it again. And that's when she realizes that she's having a sort of memory loss because he's having this memory gain. And then she talks about at the beginning when she said the part I read where she's like, does he feel this all day while he's having a conversation with me? So that's like her, like the reveal is that's her father who she's talking about. So when she reads, when he says father, it's sort of like connecting all the pieces. So it's like, she's like, oh yeah, father, it's that whole thing. But then also realizing that she's also having, or fear of having issues that that other character is having. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you again. Okay, we have 2 questions. The first one is from Jane Gilrain. Let me find you, Jane.
Hi, thank you so much for.
Can you guys hear her?
Jane, I'm sorry, we can't hear you. I don't have you on mute.
Maybe do you want to type your question in the chat if you can't get the audio to work?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'll try again.
Okay.
I just wanted you to know that when I watched the beautiful work, I didn't know that you were using Mary Shelley's text. And I haven't read the book, I'm ashamed to say. But when I heard the male character, I immediately thought of Alzheimer's.
Huh.
And I thought that it was maybe your.
Uh-oh.
I think we lost her.
Yeah, we lost the second part of your comment, Jane.
The way that those two perspectives, you know, the creature and the you know, the becoming and the unbecoming are the same. It's just so beautiful, so beautiful. So, and then I have a very specific question. There was a moment in the film when there was some kind of machine, like I think it was red, in the forest, and there were some men there, and I thought that they were going to cut a tree down, and I just had this horrible feeling like, oh no, we're going to watch destruction. And I'm just curious, what was, like, was that intentional, or what was happening there? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm trying to, is it a little shed? I'm like, I'd have to look.
Maybe I misinterpreted it. It was red, and I thought it was like a crane or something. And then I thought there was, like, where there was a tree, it was suddenly empty. So maybe I conjured this all in my head. I don't know.
I can remember that part.
I mean, that's part of what you do when you tell a story via theater or film, right? It's like people make of it what they make of it.
Yeah.
True, yeah.
I'm trying to think what that would have been. Was it a car, maybe?
I don't know. I'd have to watch it again. It kind of came and went. So that's okay. You don't have to answer.
Didn't you say?
I'm gonna go look. I'm like, what could? Because I kept like a couple cars in, maybe a little shack, little things like that, and the power lines. But I'm trying to think what that would be.
Didn't you say, Summer, that there was a scene where there were cars driving around and then it was kicking up the snow?
Yeah,
Is that it?
Well, but there wasn't a car. It's just the snow that kicks up.
I think it must have been the shack, because it was in a forest and there was like something red in the background, and because it was obscured by the trees, it might have looked to me like a machine. Do you know what I mean?
I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. No, that was just a little shack. They're just shacks everywhere there.
An innocent shack. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, going to Beth, who has a question.
Hey, Summer.
Hi, Beth.
I thought what you said about sundowning was really powerful, and I had never thought of it that way in terms of the connection that our bodies, when we don't have complete control over them, sort of return to this stronger connection to the rhythms of the day or of time or of light, and that was, thank you, that was really powerful. And I had the good fortune to be in the Arctic with Summer, and I watched you when you were filming sometimes, and we were in pretty close quarters, a lot of us, and I'm wondering what some of the things that you look for are when you film.
Good question.
That's a good question. So I think, let me think how to answer. It depends on the project, because I feel like in Finland, like I was looking for this like vastness and like the path and like thinking about mirroring. So I'm kind of piecing things together that way. In the Arctic, man, I think also, so in the Arctic, which is the next piece I'll do, there's two characters again. Well, right now, I don't know, it might change. But I was sort of trying to film, we were on a boat, Beth and I were on this amazing residency in the Arctic Circle in June. And while on the boat, I was sort of thinking about this, there's gonna be this sailor character. And so I just kind of drop into like how he's gonna see and sort of what he's gonna experience. So I think that's what I do. I kind of drop into the character and then start thinking, okay, well, how would they see? Because it is sort of literally their point of view. It's not like, you know, character and character talking or like traditional kind of film narrative stuff. So yeah, that, and then I think a lot about the frame of trying to just skew it like slightly to the left or right, so it feels a little kind of off. So yeah. Yeah, I think like character. The boat, the boat, we shot a lot there. I was like shooting so much. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll have that answer later for that once I read it.
It was hard not to shoot stuff there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's so amazing. Yeah, if that answers your question.
Thank you. Okay, there are a few questions that I've received to read. So Summer, it will maybe look like a dialogue between you and me, but these are questions from participants. Someone writes, thank you for reminding us the beauty of nature within its stillness. Wonderful photography and beautiful pace in your storyline. I loved your ending phrase, the landscape paints the show, otherwise it becomes too depressing. Thank you for your beautiful work. Question, what senses were amplified for you while you lived in that environment?
Oh, while I was in Finland. So definitely, like I said, I felt very discombobulated, and I think like other residents there too, because we were all coming from kind of elsewhere, and I've traveled a lot and I've never been so jet lagged. I think because the sun would rise at like 9:30 in the morning and set at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I would get up at like 1 and then like eat breakfast and then the sun set. So it was so just to answer that, I just feel like I was thinking so much about time and so much about kind of home for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe just being in this, really appreciating being warm and inside, and you have, you know, you go to a residency and you try to make your room all like, you know, your little home. Yeah, I think those things.
That makes sense. That's actually a very nice segue to our next question. Sato writes, I've never known Wisconsin seasonally, but are you planning any summer view film for a future project? Because your name is Summer. Such beautiful images, so much. Thanks so much for making me happy tonight.
A summer film? I have a film that's shot in Wisconsin in the summer. You can watch that. It's called Psychogeography. It's shot in Door County in Wisconsin, and it's landscape and voiceover. So yeah, I guess I did that one. Check.
Check that off. Okay, a question from Alana. How much does it matter to you, Summer, whether we know the exact story?
Yeah.
Simple question, but maybe a big answer.
No, I get asked that a lot. That has been a struggle for me in the past. I actually, this piece I did a bunch of iterations and showed a couple people to see what level of confusion they were at, because I wanted people slightly confused, but not totally confused. So it's important to me that people know what's going on. But in this piece specifically, I wanted people themselves to be a little like, wait, what? Now it, a bit disoriented also. So, but I think I ended up I first did the whole narration, which was her reading both. So I'm distracted because the cheering is happening because it's 7 p.m.
I know, yeah.
Cheers for the workers. My neighbors go crazy. So what was I saying? Yeah, so it's, I ended up actually getting a male actor to do the Frankenstein part, just because otherwise it did get a little confusing for people. So it's a fine line, but.
I mean, it definitely feels like there's the right amount of like cluing the viewer into what's happening, but also like not revealing everything, and it sort of unfolds in a very, I don't know, like it in a lethargic but kind of natural way too. So yeah, it feels like you hit the balance nicely.
Great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Who else has a question? Anyone? Oh, it looks like April has a question.
Sure. Hi, April.
I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
If no one else is going to ask a question, I just had a technical question. What area of the gallery was that corner shot in?
Where is it exhibited? It's in the back room. So like if you walk into the back room, you would see it. So it's like, I don't know how to describe it.
Then we call it Gallery 2, actually. So the big space is Gallery 1 that has, the triple height ceilings and this sort of industrial looking part of the gallery space. And then we have Gallery 2, which is the smaller gallery that has 4 white walls and the ceiling is lower. I mean, it's still like 12 feet, but it's, it's lower than the 30-foot ceiling in the other space. So we have it back there, and it's nice because we can darken the room better. There aren't any windows in there or anything.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a good scale back there too, I think. It's like kind of cozy, not so overwhelming.
Wonderful. Thank you. We have a question from Rebecca, which I will read. She wrote, I love being outside with you in the video. Our relationship with nature, at least for me right now, is very different and more precious. Your love of the woods is beautiful and welcome. Summer, how are you dealing with the current stay-at-home situation? Do you have the concentration to work now?
No, I don't. I'm so curious if other artists do, because I feel Well, I think also because I just completed this project, so everybody's like, well, you can just work on your work. I'm like, I'm tired I was on my own quarantine 3 months for this piece editing before this started, and then it started. But no, I'm having a hard time. I'm doing a lot of cleaning. I'm doing a lot of organizing of my books and dishes and reading too much news. But I'm hoping that I think, yeah, it's just such a weird time. But I'm hoping, I actually just cleaned my whole studio today, so I'm hoping to like settle back in and start looking through footage for the Arctic piece. But I don't know how other artists feel. I want to hear how all of you feel, especially artists working, because
Yeah.
it's such a strange time.
I wanted to mention that this was it was a tough installation for us and for you, Summer, and just getting the AV, the technical things to work, and with the video players and getting it all to sync and all that. And I actually want to give a shout out to our media systems manager, Javier Maria. I don't know if he's on this call, but he did so much work to get that 2-channel video synced installation to work, and it looked great. And it's a shame that it was only up for a week before we had to close the gallery. But yeah, so I don't blame Summer for wanting to just like take a break after that.
Yeah, I don't know why that was such an intense install, but it was. Everybody thinks you just plug in video and go, but of course it's a nightmare.
And that's why there's a moment, I don't know if anyone noticed, but there's a moment in the talk where Summer and I both just kind of crack up because we're like both thinking about how tough the installation was. So it's in that segment where we're talking about how she came to decide to do it as a 2-channel video projection in the corner like that. And we both like cracked up at one point because I think we were both thinking about how tough it was. But anyway.
Yeah, and it looks, yeah, he did such a good job, and it looks so, I'm so happy with how it looks. So.
Yeah, thank you, Javier.
Yeah, thanks, Javier.
Just a quick comment that we got in the chat from Alice. Thank you, Summer. It was strange and wonderful to be taken back to the space of Finland and also into the story of the work. So that was very nice. And then we have a question from Kathleen.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm the executive director of Smack Melon. So thank you all for coming. And thank you, Summer, for the beautiful, beautiful piece. I am so moved by your work, this piece, and it's very personal for me as well, because my parents are both suffering from Alzheimer's. And I love that you found, Frankenstein's the text. It's just so perfect, and I never had really thought about that perspective, that it's like, people say, oh, they're like a child, but that doesn't really mean that they're discovering, that they're experiencing their senses in that way. I had never thought about that, but as soon as I heard that, I knew what it was that you were doing. And when you answered some questions today, and I forget who asked the questions, but you referred to, the sun setting and that you had witnessed people in the home. And I was wondering if you had actually done some research beyond your own experience with your dad about what happens in order to make this film, or just doing research in order to, be there for your dad as best as you could. Did you do research, or is this kind of based on your experience, just your experience and your perception of what was happening?
Good question. I feel like the research, if we were doing research as a family, was more like, how is this going to go so we know what to do and what stages we need to make certain decisions at.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me that I didn't research so much of what's gonna, I mean, you meet with social workers and they tell you like this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen and this is probably how they're gonna die. And so you go through that and kind of prepare yourself for that. But yeah, I couldn't really it was just so emotional. I think I was more just in it. And you know, it's not like my stepmom who was there, you know, was dealing with this like every day. She's like went through so much. I mean, we live in New York, so we would fly back and but yeah, I think most of what I'm writing about is sort of what I saw. And also different, you know, dementia, Alzheimer's has different forms. So some people in the home can just talk, you know, and they're just like, blah, blah, blah. Like my dad really lost language. So that was like specific to that. Some people can get more aggressive. Some people are really chill. You know, it's all. And I think just also being in the home and seeing how different people were, like seeing how it manifested in the other patients, because, you know, you'd go there and hang out and get to know like this person and this person, you knew this person, you know, would do this thing and this person would do that. So it's such a crazy disease in that way, you know? And I think even if you do research, I feel like they don't even know still like everything about it. So yeah good question.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say to everybody that the exhibition is still up.
Yes, it's sleeping and
it's waiting to be opened up again, so stay tuned, because we hope that you know, we you know, the period of the exhibition will pass, but we're going to leave it up because the other things that we had planned, like our benefit, have been canceled.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it up, and we hope that everybody will be able to come see the show.
Yeah, we hope we'll be able to reopen to the public again, but we don't know.
Yeah.
We have
Should we take one more question? Yeah.
We have one more question in the chat. This is from Karen. She says, thank you, Summer. The story, the sensitivity of feeling, and the felt relationship to the earth, nature, sky, and the elements, and our sun and moon is beautiful, tender, and very moving. How did you come to the decision to have the space, 2 long connected horizontal landscapes joining in the corner instead of 3 walls or 4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think I wanted 2 because it was 2 voices, so they would kind of chat back and forth. 3 is hard to, it's hard to experience in a space and follow the story, especially because I knew I wanted it to like a wall black and then a wall up and then a wall coming together. And if it's 3, I think it would just be really discombobulating. Yeah, and I don't know, I think, like I said in the talk, I just sort of saw it when I was filming the sun that day. I was just like, oh, I want to split the sun. I want the sun split down the middle, and I want it to. And, you know, that was just the moment, so.
And it also worked well with the 2 voices, that you had 2 voices kind of alternating as well. Yeah. Kind of made sense.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all again for joining us. It's been really great to see so many faces, and we really appreciate you being here. And thank you, Summer, for participating in the talk and for discussing your work with us. We really appreciate that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so nice to see all of you guys. It's just like, whew.
I know,
Really
very heartwarming. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for showing it and doing this talk, and yeah.
Yeah, and I also want to thank my colleague Audrey for all her work organizing this event for us. Thank you to Kathleen and my other colleague Becky, who has also been helping out with it. We are going to be planning other virtual programming for May, so stay tuned. We're not really quite ready to announce it yet, but just stay tuned for more information about that. You can check our website, join our email list, follow us on social media, and we'll keep you informed. Okay, thanks again, and everybody, hope you have a good night.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. So nice to
Bye.
see you all.
Thanks.
Lots of lovely comments in the chat room. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the meeting. Summer, thanks again so much.
Bye.
Gabriel, bye.
Bye.
Thank you.